Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington. We begin with breaking news out of Florida, where Hurricane Milton has begun lashing the state. The National Weather Service is telling residents in the storm's path it is time to shelter in place as the powerful Category 3 storm is forecast to make landfall just hours from now. Forecasters now say the massive storm could come ashore as early as 10 p.m. That's earlier than previously predicted, with landfall expected near Sarasota. But already parts of Sarasota and Tampa Bay are seeing flooding as the region braces for a catastrophic storm surge that forecasters say could reach or exceed 15 feet. And Florida is also facing a tornado outbreak. At least 10 have already been spotted, some hundreds of miles from Milton's core, as far away as Miami. Right now, nearly all of Florida is under some form of tropical alert, with the heart of the state, seen here in red, under a hurricane warning. This afternoon, President Biden and Vice President Harris warned of the dangers of this historic storm during a briefing with federal disaster officials.
It's looking like the storm of the century between Helene and Milton. Two historic storms in 2 weeks. I want to thank everyone who has followed local guidance to evacuate ahead of the landfall. I know it's really tough, leaving behind your home, your belongings, everything you own. But I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours. It's literally a matter of life and death.
And many of you, I know, are tough, and you've ridden out these hurricanes before. This one's going to be different. And so we ask you that by every measure, understand it's going to be more dangerous, more deadly, and more catastrophic.
Now, we do expect to hear from President Biden again in the next hour on federal preparations for the storm. With more than 1 million Floridians under a mandatory evacuation order right now, FEMA Administrator Dan Criswell telling residents that getting to safety could be the difference between life and death.
This is an extremely dangerous storm, and we need all of the residents that are in the path of the storm to listen to their local officials. They will tell you if there's still time to evacuate or what you need to do if you are still where you're at. They will give you the right information about what you need to do to protect yourself where you are at right now. Sometimes just traveling a few miles inland can mean the difference between life and death, and nobody has to lose their life as a result of this storm.
Let's get to our team covering the storm now. NBC's Jesse Kirsch has the very latest from Sarasota. Stephanie Gosk is in Tampa, and Bill Cairns is with us with the latest track and the latest forecast, what we can expect. Jesse, let me start with you. We can obviously see the conditions behind you. It is already looking incredibly intense. Tell us what you are seeing there.
Yeah, Kristen, what we're seeing right now is the wind kicking up. It was hitting us pretty hard earlier, then it calmed down. The rain went away as well, and it was eerily quiet here. It's starting to pick up again. And when we talk about the evacuation orders and requests and the pleadings that we've heard from officials for days now, the reality is we're coming up on the point where it may be, if it is not already, too late for people to get out. And I think this is a prime example of it. On a good day, when it was just a typical rainstorm, this is the kind of weather in which you'd be thinking, maybe I need to pull over on the side of the road. Problem is, if you pull over on the side of the road, you're just going to get deeper into the storm with Milton making its way toward us. And we are at this point looking like we are in the bullseye in Sarasota. Right behind me, you can see there's a tall building and then a shorter one. Over those buildings, behind that shorter building, that is Sarasota Bay. So the water is that close. And I can tell you, even just from a little bit of rain compared to what we're looking at over the next day or so, just a couple hours worth of rain had the side streets around where I am partially flooded earlier. That is cleared out for the time being, but I can still see a storm drain below me that is battling the water. And again, this is really just the beginning. So when you think about that, before we even get close to the storm surge coming in, gives you an idea of the impact to the infrastructure, and that's not even talking about the threat to human life. Storm surge, when it gets that high, it's almost impossible to think someone could survive it. Over your head, it doesn't come in slowly. It doesn't rise at a leisurely pace. It comes in fast and hard. And we've seen firsthand what it can do. It can bust indoors. It can toss refrigerators around, and it will kill people. And that is why officials have been imploring people to get out while they still can. And that just brings us back to, we're approaching the point where that may be too late soon, Kristen. And then it's anyone's guess what will happen, unfortunately. I just want to bring up one last point before I give it back to you. we're looking at a variable with this storm that we have not seen, at least in the other hurricanes I have covered, and it's not something that I think we typically talk about, and that is leftover debris, because it has been less than 2 weeks, as President Biden just acknowledged, since Hurricane Helene made landfall. We've been out in this community, and I can tell you yesterday, after the mayor told me that debris pickup had been completed because of the preparations for the storm, there were still piles of trash. We're talking mattresses, plywood, shattered glass, picture frames, envelopes. People's lives are on their lawns, and it has not been fully cleared away. And when the storm surge comes in, when the wind kicks up, and we're expecting close to 100-mile-per-hour gusts here in Sarasota, all of that debris potentially becomes lethal projectiles. And so that is the big unknown, I think, in this storm. We're looking at the track. We're looking at the forecast. We know that the dangers are there, but I don't know if we fully know at this point what the impact is going to be on that in the run-up throughout the storm and in the aftermath, because that will also be obstacles for first responders. Kristen?
Jesse Kirsch, thank you so much for your reporting from Sarasota. Such an important point about that debris, all of the unknowns, all of the dangers that anyone who did not heed the evacuation orders would be facing. Please stay safe, Jesse. We really appreciate your reporting. Stephanie Gosk, let me turn to you now. Set the scene where you are. Not as much rain as we're seeing in Jesse's live shot, but obviously we can see the wind starting to whip up there.
Yeah, it's whipping up, and the rain's been coming in and out pretty heavily. We're starting to see that kind of flooding on side streets and bodies of water rising a little bit. You know, I want to pick up a little bit off of what Jesse was talking about. You know, all of that debris that he's talking about represents families who are no longer in their homes because of Hurricane Helene. That is, all of those families already displaced. Now they're being displaced again. Hardship on top of hardship. We had an incredible conversation today with a pediatrician, an emergency room pediatrician, who has a family of 4, all of her kids in the ages between 6 and 12. They live in St. Petersburg. Their house got wiped out by Helene. They were in another house that was actually also had to be evacuated because of this storm. She is now in her hospital working her shift, and all of her children are there with her because it's the safest place for them to be. It's just hard to wrap your head around how difficult and concerning and just exhausting it must be for the people who have to deal with this. And there are, of course, those people who decided not to go anywhere and are staying put. There aren't many of them. We haven't seen many of them. We're being told that the shelters are, for the most part, full. But you continue to hear these stark and dire warnings from officials that if you choose to stay in an evacuation zone and you deal with, here in Tampa Bay, the kinds of numbers that are potentially possible, 8 to 12-foot storm surge, up to 12 feet of, or 12 inches rather, of rain on top of that, that it's just not survivable. And if the winds are too strong, no one's coming to get you. Kristen.
Stephanie, what an unbelievable story that you just relayed, and it just does underscore the human suffering that is happening while the region braces for a second hurricane. Thank you so much, Stephanie Gosk. Please continue to stay safe where you are. Bill Cairns, let me turn to you. Forecasters have apparently moved up the predicted landfall. Talk about the implications of that. And this is shaping up to be an historic storm still.
And we have big changes happening, Kristen, currently. So the first thing you asked about is moving up the timing. The effects are still going to be the same. Everyone's already hunkering down. Everyone's already in their safe rooms and staying inside. So that's fine. The important thing is, where is the landfall going to happen? We've been pointing at Sarasota for about the last 12 to 18 hours after that shift yesterday. Was it Tampa going south? Now the storm has wobbled to the north in the last couple hours. That has significant impacts for any interest around Tampa Bay, because we were hoping that the worst of the surge would be out of Tampa Bay and south of you. Not that we want it in Sarasota or Venice or Inglewood or Fort Myers for that matter, but at least if we could avoid Tampa Bay, it's a highly populated area, and that may not be happening now. So let me explain. So this is the forecast line from 11 o'clock. In about 45 minutes, we're going to get a new forecast center line. Notice how it kind of bends like this? That's not how it really happens. They're giving us hourly position updates, and right now the storm is about 10 to 15 miles north of where it should be, and that's why this line automatically kind of corrects itself. I think when we get that new forecast from the Hurricane Center, I think it's going to be north of Sarasota, somewhere in between Tampa and Sarasota. That may be the landfall, which makes the storm surge much worse in Sarasota and possibly getting into portions of Tampa Bay. Let me give you another example. All of these little lines show us our potential computers, like where the storm is going to go. These lines are all about 10 to 15 miles south of where the storm actually is right now. And if we actually follow the lines that are closer to it, they do bring it up here closer to Tampa or Tampa Bay. So this is a huge change. And the reason it's such a big deal is because if Tampa Bay is on the south side, north side of the storm, the wind blows out, and then we see all the water exiting. If we take this eye and we project it right over Tampa, first off, you have to go through the eye, but then we also have a chance of we get the air and the wind blowing the water out, and then as the eye approaches, it can rush in. And that's what happens right near the eye. Extremely dangerous. And that's potentially what could occur if we continue to watch this northerly drift here. And this also definitely means that, like, areas from Sarasota here, you're now getting locked in to that 10 to 15-foot storm surge. Not what you wanted to hear. It's about 90 miles right now from Tampa Bay. Yes, we are down to a Category 3, but that storm surge is locked in. It's too late. This storm was too strong, too long, pushing too much water towards the coast. It doesn't matter how much the winds weaken now for the storm surge. Yes, it will help with wind damage, maybe a little less than was expected, but the storm surge is what's going to cause 80% of the damage out of this. And now we're watching these bright red bands. They're starting to approach Sarasota, Clearwater Beach here, Siesta Key. These areas are now going to start getting those hurricane gusts, which means the power outages are going to start going out. So, our thoughts, so many people are watching this, Kristen. They have their properties, they have their businesses, their livelihoods depend on where this makes landfall. And a lot of people in Tampa Bay were feeling better about things, and right now they are super nervous and pits in your stomach moments as we wait and see where this landfall is going to be. And by the way, that should be sometime probably around 10 p.m., maybe if it goes further north, up around Pinellas County here, maybe closer to midnight, but this is starting to get real and happen very quickly, and the high tide's coming in with it. This is pretty horrific for everyone there with those interests in that area.
Yeah, and you mapped it out so well, Bill. And of course, we know you'll continue to keep us posted on the storm's path. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. Well, next, as the storm is heading towards Florida, some scientists have been heading towards the storm, flying directly into the hurricane to collect data. This is the view of the eye earlier today, and this was the view from the flight deck during that mission. The turbulent ride, enough to startle even seasoned hurricane hunters. Joining me now is one of the crew members on that flight today, Lieutenant Commander Josh Renberg with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we just saw that extraordinary video. Take us inside your flight. You flew through this storm today. What did you learn, Commander?
Yeah, I mean, it just solidified today, especially today and yesterday's mission, were both significant. It was the craziest storm I've ever flown in, hands down. And I watched this turn into a monster from a tropical storm, both in terms of its reach and in terms of its power. So it's difficult to watch now after seeing it from the inside as it bears down on my home.
We're seeing more of this video, the way in which you all are bouncing around as you fly through the storm. You say it's different than any other storm you've flown through. I mean, just in the strength, and what is the takeaway for folks who are on the ground like yourself, who have homes there?
Yeah, in terms of strength, definitely. The turbulence and the wind shear that we felt, the amount of lightning that I've seen inside this storm has been tenfold compared to most of the other storms that I've flown in. And I've been doing this now for 5 hurricane seasons. I've penetrated the eye of a hurricane over 150 times, and this was definitely the worst I've seen. So I think my message to anybody who's still in the area where it's making landfall is to shelter in place.
And what does the data that you gathered tell you about the impact that Milton will have when it does make landfall?
The research data that we collect goes directly into the supercomputer forecast models, and it helps reduce the margin of error between a forecast and what actually happens, not just for this storm, but for every storm in the future. And I think that it's a testament to what the NOAA hurricane hunters bring to the table and the service they provide this country. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
What does the data specifically that you gathered on Milton tell you? How does it compare to other storms?
Just from what I've seen, the perspective that I've seen is from the cockpit. So my view is kind of scope locked on what's going on with the aircraft. The winds I've seen, or the strongest I've ever seen at the altitude we fly inside the storm at, the turbulence was the most severe that I've ever seen. So I think that's just a testament to what a monster this storm really turned into.
And I know this is your job, but boy, we see you all up in the middle of this storm that so many people are fleeing, and in some ways you're flying right in the middle of it. Do you ever get scared doing this?
On these past couple missions, I don't think my crew and I had much time to be scared. We had a job to do, and we were doing it.
Well, it's pretty extraordinary. As you look to the future, Commander, do you anticipate that storms of this strength, like Milton, will become the new normal, particularly given what we just saw with Helene?
You know, I have such a small view on what's been going on with the hurricane seasons over time. Like I said, I've been doing it for 5 seasons, but it's such a small blip in the grand scheme of things. I really can't tell you what to expect in the future versus the past, but I can tell you that this storm is real.
And your message loud and clear that folks heed the warnings to evacuate. Lieutenant Commander Josh Randenberg, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
And joining me now is the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, Dan Allers, who himself has evacuated. Mayor, what an incredible circumstance that you yourself have evacuated. We're just hours away from the expected landfall of Milton. Set the scene. What is your message to the communities there? And is the community ready?
Well, I think this is our 5th storm, since Ian hit 2 years ago. So to say we're ready, I guess we're as ready as we can be. We're pretty battle tested. This will be the strongest one since Ian. 2 weeks ago, we're still cleaning up from Hurricane Helene. So I guess we're as ready as we can be. Our residents really heeded the warning and got off the island. I left there about 2.5 hours ago for the last time, and it was pretty much a ghost town. The majority of people left. There are a few that decided to stay. All we can tell them now is to hold on and hope for the best.
Mayor, given how rapidly changing the forecast is, you just heard from our Bill Cairns, and as we have this conversation, we're looking at the strength of the winds. It's just unbelievable. They're blowing the palm trees around. What's your biggest concern right now? Is it the wind? Is it the storm surge? Is it everything?
The wind is certainly a factor, but in this case, it's going to be the surge. What we saw with Ian, 15 feet of storm surge. We're predicted 8 to 12. What you're seeing there at the Margaritaville pool, it was up to almost that thatched roof that you see there in the middle of the screen during Ian. So a lot of the buildings you can kind of see in the background there are gone from Ian. So the biggest concern is that this surge, if it's the 8 to 12, is going to push inland on the island quite a ways, and it's going to affect the homes that were protected before Ian. But now all those structures are gone, so we haven't had a chance to complete the beach renourishment that we've been working on. We had an emergency berm that we had in place, but the last 3 storms have pretty much knocked that down. So we're pretty wide open. We're at sea level with no protection in front of us. So this surge is going to do quite a bit of damage.
You talked about the debris, Mayor, and we have been seeing images of it throughout the day, quite frankly, throughout this broadcast. How much of a concern does that bring to you as you brace for this monster storm to make landfall? And has enough debris been removed to make sure that for the few people who did stay, it won't become a more dangerous situation?
Yeah, I would say from Hurricane Helene, we were able to get about 90 to 95% of the debris off the island, including the sand. There is still a few streets that have some debris on it. We do have construction dumpsters that are all over the island that weren't able to get removed in time. And there's obviously a lot of construction equipment, not equipment, but materials that are there from the rebuild that we're doing from Ian. So all that stuff is tied down as best it can be, but at this point we're at the mercy of Mother Nature and God, and we'll see what happens. And we're certainly hoping that we get the lower end of that surge, but right now we're just in a holding pattern and waiting to see.
Well, we hope so too, and you are all in our thoughts there. Everyone in Florida who's going to be impacted by this storm. Mayor Dan Allers, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Please stay safe, and we will continue to follow Hurricane Milton closely. And we've got more from the region as it braces for the worst coming up. But first, with 27 days until the election, Trump rallies in must-win Pennsylvania as Harris blitzes the airwaves and battles questions about breaking from Biden. Plus, federal officials arrest an Afghan national living in the U.S. for allegedly plotting an Election Day terrorist attack. Stay with us. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. Turning to a busy day on the campaign trail with less than a month until Election Day. At this hour, former President Trump is holding a rally in battleground Pennsylvania. He's continuing his attack on the federal hurricane response, calling the Helene response the worst rescue operation in history without any evidence. And for the second election cycle in a row, Mr. Trump is facing the fallout from a Bob Woodward book. This time, Woodward reports Trump sent Russian leader Vladimir Putin scarcely available COVID tests during the height of the pandemic. According to Bloomberg, the Kremlin has confirmed that reporting. The book also says that the former president and Putin have talked several times since he left the White House. Here's Mr. Trump's reaction to that reporting.
He said was that you've had a number of conversations with Putin. Is that true? I mean, I imagine that could be. No?
That's false.
Oh, really?
That's false.
So you haven't spoken to him since you left the White House?
No, I have not.
And the other.
False.
Meanwhile, as we mentioned earlier, Vice President Harris attended a hurricane briefing virtually today and did some phone interviews before hitting the trail for Nevada. It comes amid a media blitz with an appearance last night on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, where she again was unable to give a direct answer about how her administration would be different from Joe Biden's. Listen.
You are a member of the President's administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change
Yes.
in terms of.
Yes.
But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country.
I want to turn now to our NBC News correspondents covering the campaigns. Monica Alba is covering Vice President Harris, and Dasha Burns is at the Trump rally in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Monica, let me turn to you. Look, that's the second time that the vice president got that question this week. What is the campaign saying about her strategy in answering it? Do they have any plans to change strategy, or are they satisfied with that answer that has, by the way, gotten critiqued by Donald Trump?
Yeah, and it was notable also, Kristen, that she was asked this exact question earlier in the day. And at the time, she said, well, there's nothing that really comes to mind because I was a part of those big decisions. And then in that same interview, a few moments later, she said, actually, I want to revise that. And there is one thing I would do differently. And she suggested that she would appoint a Republican to her cabinet if elected, saying that pride wouldn't get in the way of something like that. So that was one kind of example that seemed to come a little bit later in the course of that interview. But then, yes, when she was posed with that exact same question again later in the day, she didn't really talk about that and instead reverted back to a line that she delivered during her debate against Donald Trump, where she said, I'm not Joe Biden and I'm not Donald Trump. And it's something that her campaign is keenly aware of strategically is an important moment where she feels she needs to define herself separately from President Biden while making sure to praise his leadership and still stay strategically aligned with what they view and what they tout as the Biden-Harris administration accomplishments. But I think you can expect her in the days and weeks ahead, in the limited time she has left, to continue to make a point of where there may be some differences, where there could be some distance. And they're trying to do that by focusing on the future and what she would do as a leader if she's elected, instead of looking at the past. But again, they know that this is kind of a fragile relationship where she's still the sitting vice president, and she wants to be sure to not put any kind of a negative light on the current president, who was the one who got out of the way, so that she could be the Democratic nominee. But also in a moment when you're responding to the storm and this massive massive, massive crisis in the country, that's another reason that the campaign is arguing she's, of course, not going to put that much distance between herself and President Biden at this moment, even if that's something that they know she may need to do in the later weeks. Kristen.
It's such a fascinating point, Monica, because here we are, the country, Florida, bracing for this historic storm, Milton, to make landfall. And of course, the politics of how leaders handle a storm can impact the election. Today, the vice president getting briefed on the storm, also calling into some news outlets. What has her message been today, Monica?
Yeah, and they featured her pretty prominently in this briefing that was made available to the public. Everybody could watch it with the president. She joined remotely because she was in New York, and now she's on her way to Las Vegas, Nevada for campaign events. And she's going to be heading after that to Arizona, we understand, for more campaigning on Friday. So despite the president canceling and postponing his overseas travel so that he can be manning the response and the entirety of the federal government operation in regards to Milton, the vice president is saying that she's doing that while also heading to the campaign trail. And she, at this point at least, hasn't moved those kinds of events. There's a question about whether that could shift, but she's trying to do both of these things because remember last week when Hurricane Helene was hitting, she did adjust her schedule somewhat and certain events got moved around. And they know that with so few days left, they have very, very precious real estate and time to get that message out in some of the battleground states. So they want to be able to do both. But she also wants to be seen as somebody who is playing a key role in the response as long as the response is, in the view of critics, going well. And that is something that after Helene, she was also criticized for by some people in terms of maybe she wasn't as involved as she could have been. And her team argued that, well, it was up to the president, but certainly she's a partner to the president, and that she has been on some of these key calls, which I think we can expect to see. And she has been the one trying to spread that message also about the misinformation, the disinformation, and calling out people like former President Trump for their messaging, calling him utterly irresponsible, and others who have spread information when it came to Hurricane Helene. If that repeats with Hurricane Milton, I think we can see her and expect her to do the same.
Monica, Alba, thank you so much for your fantastic reporting. As always, we really appreciate it. Great to see you. We want to turn now to a really disturbing story ahead of the election. An Afghan national living in Oklahoma was charged this week with conspiring to carry out a terrorist attack on Election Day on behalf of ISIS. That's according to newly unsealed court documents. The 27-year-old defendant and a juvenile co-conspirator were arrested after meeting with an undercover FBI agent while attempting to buy weapons. According to the Justice Department, the 27-year-old confirmed that he was intending to target large gatherings on Election Day. Joining me now with more is NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. And Ken, thanks for being here. So take us inside your reporting. What are you learning about how authorities actually uncovered this plot?
So the FBI has not spelled that out in the charging documents, but they made it clear that he left some clues, including a contribution that he made to a charity that was essentially a front for ISIS, and a lot of engagement with ISIS propaganda online. So that is possibly a way that the FBI got onto him. And then once they were onto him, they dangled some confidential sources in front of him to set up this buy of rifles and other ammunition and other things. The FBI had control of the plot the whole time. It's not even clear exactly what he was targeting, but he did say after he was arrested, he confessed that he planned to carry out an attack on Election Day, wanted a lot of casualties, and he planned for it to be a suicide attack, Kristen.
Well, it's just absolutely chilling. And we know that the Trump campaign is already pouncing on this. Republicans saying, look, this is a sign of the weak immigration system that we have in place. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, this is an interesting dimension here. The charging document said that he entered the country on a special immigrant visa, which is a visa given to Afghans who worked for U.S. forces. But we found out today that that's not accurate. He actually came in under humanitarian parole, and he entered the country just less than a month before the chaotic withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan was completed. So there's some belief that he may have gotten in here with very little vetting under a system where a lot of Afghans were coming into the country during a very chaotic period. There's a lot of questions still to be answered on this, but you're absolutely right. The Trump campaign is pointing the finger and saying, wait a second here. And frankly, the U.S. government is not really answering some fundamental questions at this hour. Chris.
Well, I know you'll stay on top of all of this. Ken Delaney, and thanks so much. Great to see you, as always. Joining me now with the very latest from the Trump campaign's rally in Pennsylvania is Dasha Burns. Dasha, thanks for being here. So tell us what your headlines are so far from the Trump rally there.
Well, look, Kristen, the former president is speaking behind me right now, and I will tell you the more aggressive rhetoric is really ramping up with these 27 days left to go to Election Day. He's been bashing Harris, insulting her intelligence. The words stupid and dumb and incompetent have been used over and over again today. He played a video, the clip of Harris on The View that you were talking about with Monica earlier, where she didn't have an answer for how she would have done things differently than President Biden. He has also continued his misleading statements about FEMA and the hurricane response. Take a listen.
She's just led the worst rescue operation in history in North Carolina. The worst. And we have another big one coming in, but the worst, the one in North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Virginia, was pieces of Florida got hit. I mean, it's incredible. The worst ever, they say. They had no money. You know where they gave the money? To illegal immigrants coming in, many of whom are killers. Tim said they want to abolish the Electoral College.
Kristen, he also played a odd new video that was meant to contrast the military under Trump versus under this administration. It was a then and now video, but the clips of the then were from the movie Full Metal Jacket, and the now clips were what seemed to be clips of military members in drag on TikTok. He also dug into the issue of energy, which is, of course, critical to Pennsylvania, saying that he's going to save the fracking and energy industry here in the Keystone State. For context, though, I'll remind our viewers that right now, America is producing more oil than at any point in history. Kristen.
Dasha Burns, I know it's always tough to talk when there's a rally underway. Well done. Thank you so much for the great information. Coming up next, President Biden holds talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as the region braces for potential retaliatory attacks against Iran. We're live in Tel Aviv. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. For the first time in almost 2 months, President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke by phone today as the Middle East remains on edge for a potential escalation in the region. Vice President Harris also participated in the phone call, which the White House says lasted about 30 minutes. According to the White House, during the call, President Biden reaffirmed his commitment to Israel's security, but the official readout from the call made no specific mention of Israel's anticipated retaliatory response. Until the phone call today, U.S. officials tell NBC News that Israeli leaders had not briefed the U.S. on the specific details of their retaliatory response against Iran, even as the Pentagon discussed the possibility of supporting any potential military action. Joining me now is Erin McLaughlin, who's live in Tel Aviv for us. So, Erin, what more do we know about this call between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Hey there, Kristen. Well, it did come up today during the White House briefing. We heard from the press secretary say that the call lasted around 30 minutes. She said that it was, quote, direct and productive conversation, adding that the Israeli potential response to Iran's last week missile strike did come up during that call, but no further specifics. We know, we heard from President Biden last week say that he did not want to negotiate with the Israelis on this topic in public. He did say, though, that officials, U.S. officials, were in constant contact with their Israeli counterparts about a potential response, and he did publicly say that he opposes any potential strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and would counsel against Israel striking Iran's oil fields. But beyond that, at this point, in terms of this response, it remains very much an open question. Details in terms of what was discussed is few and far between.
And Erin, what reporting do you have about the potential timing of a retaliatory response, if in fact there is one?
Yeah, well, remember, in the wake of that massive missile strike, what Israeli officials are calling the largest missile strike ever in Israel's history, Israeli officials were promising a strong response. They were promising a swift response. It has been 7 days, and still it's unclear the timing of all of this. We know in terms of that next step, the cabinet would need to approve any potential strikes. As far as we know, no cabinet meeting has been scheduled as yet. Also worth noting in terms of that timing, the last time that Israel launched a retaliatory strike, it was about 5 days after the Iran missile strike. That was back in April. But this time around, Israeli officials are promising a much stronger response. We did hear from the Israeli defense minister earlier today promising a surprise. He was briefing an intelligence unit saying, quote, just as we have been doing until now in the war, on all other fronts, whoever attacks us will be hurt and will pay a price. Our attack will be deadly, precise, and above all, surprising. They will not understand what happened and how it happened. They will see the results. So an ominous warning there from the Israeli defense minister today.
Oh, indeed it is. Erin, what is the latest on the ground in Lebanon, the status of the fighting there?
You know, by all accounts, the Israeli operation there appears to be expanding. That was announced earlier in the week. The Israeli military previously concentrating their ground operations on the western portion of the border, now expanding those operations to the east, still considered by them to be limited operations in nature. But there was just a State Department briefing where Matt Miller raised some concerns about the potential for Operation Creep, something that the U.S. has long been worried about. He said, quote, he is cognizant of the long history of Israel, starting with limited ground operations, turning into more full-scale ground operations, turning into occupation, and that's something that we are very clear we are opposed to. U.S. officials also coming out strongly against the Prime Minister's address to the Lebanese people. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night issuing a warning to the Lebanese people to avoid a Gazification sort of Lebanon. U.S. officials saying they are absolutely against that kind of language and that kind of threat, really. Kristen.
Some strong language there coming from the U.S. as the world waits to see what Israel does next. Erin McLaughlin, thank you. Please stay safe, my friend. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Coming up after the break, if you stay here, you will die. That was the dire warning from one local emergency official whose community is in the path of Hurricane Milton. That official joins me next. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. We are continuing to track Hurricane Milton, which is expected to make landfall in just a few hours from now along Florida's Gulf Coast. The latest timing from forecasters is that landfall is expected between 9 p.m. and midnight. In addition to powerful winds, a catastrophic storm surge, which we've been talking about, and more than a foot of rain, roughly 10 tornadoes have touched down across the state. Tornado watches are in effect from north of Tampa all the way to Key West. Joining me now from Naples, Florida, is NBC's Dana Griffin. Dana, thank you so much for joining us. So you're in Naples. You're south of where we're currently expecting the storm to make landfall in the coming hours. But how are conditions where you are? Obviously, it's raining pretty hard there.
It is, Kristen, and we've seen it come and go. Right now, it's picking up. We've experienced some of those wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour in Naples. Right now, you know, we're just watching and seeing how the storm develops over time. There were tornado warnings, as you mentioned earlier today. We happened to be on the beach in Naples when our phone started alerting us to take cover because of those warnings. So we left, we came further inland, got inside a garage, and so this is where we are now doing our live shots. Even surfers were at that beach, still enjoying the water. You can see some of the video there, those waves crashing against that pier, which, by the way, was damaged during the 2022 Hurricane Ian. That that pier is still it has not yet been repaired and may take another beating today. So the major concern here is storm surge, which could be anywhere between 5 to 8 feet. So although we are out of the direct path of Milton, we are likely to still get some of those impacts. And as you can see, hours early, we are starting to feel them now. Kristen?
You know, Dana, obviously the evacuation orders have been incredibly strongly worded. Officials saying this is a matter of life and death. Have people in that area heeded the warnings? Have they largely evacuated, Dana?
I would say for the most part, especially in Naples, they mostly evacuated the coastal residents and also a tiny chunk that is prone to storm surge. We've heard from people that live in those areas. They say they are getting out. They were getting out days ago. And part of that is because of conditions like this. For people that are trying to leave now, it's going to be very tricky because road conditions are dicey. And also, you've got tornadoes that have already touched down, at least 10 confirmed. So, people are getting into those shelters. We called Collier County. They confirmed they've got about 8 or 9 shelters open now, including a couple for pets and also others for special needs, for people who need a caregiver and may need power 24/7 because of special medical equipment. They say that people are showing up. They are not at capacity, which means people probably left town or maybe they are waiting out the storm. But other people we spoke to that are not in the evacuation zone, they said that they were either higher up or they were heading inland. Kristen, as you can see, we just felt a big wind gust.
I was going to say, I can see you holding on there. Dana Griffin, please stay safe. You are obviously in one of the areas that is getting hit the hardest. We appreciate your great reporting. Joining me now is Chief Trip Bars of Treasure Island Fire Rescue as the Barrier Island community braces for Hurricane Milton. Chief Bars, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So let me just pick up with you on what I was just talking about with Dana. You obviously were among the officials warning people that if they stayed on the Barrier Island, they may not survive. Did people listen to your message? Did they get out of the island?
We saw really good compliance across the Pinellas County Barrier Islands with the mandatory evacuation order. We just came back about an hour and a half ago doing our final pass through the streets on the PA, and maybe a couple dozen folks stayed behind. We warned them to get off, and they were insistent on staying. So,
and your level of concern for the few people who did decide to stay?
It's high. We really fear for their safety. We're starting to see those 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts coming through, and we're still many hours away from landfall. So, we just, in the past 30 minutes, made a few last-minute rescues of folks who at the 11th hour changed their minds. Just as of 5 minutes ago in Treasure Island, all police, fire, and EMS have ceased operations. So if you're still on a Barrier Island, you need to find somewhere on the second floor and hunker down and, try to stay away from windows.
Well, just to let folks know where you are off of the island, but you're at the command center, basically tracking this storm from there. Talk about the debris, Chief, because we have been obviously seeing the image of the debris from Hurricane Helene. How much does that concern you? What are your biggest concerns about the remaining debris?
Very much. We had just gotten into recovery mode, and we're starting to pick that up when we had to switch back to response, preparing for response mode. So we've got piles of debris everywhere. Those are going to be missile hazards. We had not even had a chance to get structural engineers out to look at some of the more impacted buildings. So we may have buildings that are now going to be impacted by 100+ mile an hour winds that were previously damaged by storm surge. So very concerning. We're not sure what we're going to come back to when we leave the safety of the EOC and push back to the island.
Well, and if you could just put that into perspective for us, Chief, given your concerns, given the urgent warnings for everyone to evacuate, is this the biggest, most severe storm that you have ever experienced in your career?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. We've had 5 or 6 glancing blows in my tenure here and various degrees of damage, but Helene was the worst. so far, and I'm pretty sure that Milton's going to top that. So with the southerly tracks switching a little bit to the south, we may not see the storm surge we saw predicted at 10 to 15 feet, but it's going to be a good storm surge, and we're really concerned about the high winds.
And how has your communication been with the state and federal government? Do you feel like you're getting the support you need, of course, to prepare for what happens after the storm hits?
Absolutely. We've got great partnerships. We work through our county EOC to request resources, and they push those up to the state Division of Emergency Management. Director Guthrie has been very supportive, getting us all the resources we need, both for Helene and to prepare for Milton. And we had just gotten FEMA resources on the island when we had to shut all that down and begin preparing for response mode again. So I feel pretty comfortable with the support we're going to get. We've got air assets on standby. We're going to do aviation operations for search and rescue if needed. So we're ready to come back once the winds and water die down.
Chief Trip Bars, please know you are in all of our thoughts. Everyone there, we are hoping that people have evacuated, have heeded your warnings, and stay safe. We hope you stay safe. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime.
And a programming note. My colleague Tom Yamas will have special coverage of Hurricane Milton live from Florida. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern on Top Story with Tom Yamas right here on NBC News Now. We'll be right back with more Meet the Press Now. Welcome back. It's not just 27 days to the presidential election. There's also the high-stakes battle for control of the House and Senate, where Democrats find themselves playing some serious defense. They essentially need to run the table in battleground races to keep their razor-thin majority. One of those key races is in Arizona for the seat being left open by retiring Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Early voting in the crucial state began today, and the two Senate candidates, Republican Kari Lake and Democrat Ruben Gallego, will face off tonight for their first and only debate before Election night. NBC's Julie Tsirkin spoke with both of the candidates ahead of tonight's big showdown, and she joins me from Phoenix. So, Julie, great job talking to the candidates. What were your key takeaways from your conversation with Kari Lake?
Kristen, how much time do we have? Because there was so much that stood out for me in our interview that lasted about 18 minutes. You know, she began talking about the kind of vision she wants for Arizona, what kind of senator she would be, how she feels good going into her debate. She often brought up her internal polling, which she told me was, quote, the real deal, the real scoop on the race that showed her actually leading Gallego, her opponent, and even performing at the same level that Trump is performing in this state, which we know is just not accurate when it comes to all of the public polling we've seen. There was a notable shift in her demeanor, Kristen, when I started pressing her on that, when I started asking her about her election denialism, whether she would vote to certify the election on January 6th if she was a senator. She called me honey. She asked for my name again, even though I have interviewed her before. She abruptly then ended the interview right after this moment. Watch.
Would you vote to codify the election no matter what happens?
Can you imagine asking a soccer player or a football player, will you agree,
But this
right?
is our democratic process, not elections that have been secured.
Julie, would you like me to answer the question?
I would, but you just
Or do you want to argue with me?
No, I'm not looking to argue with you. I just want a clear answer for Arizonans once and for all, because integrity is a big issue here.
If you were playing a soccer game and they said to the soccer team, before this election, will you agree with every single call the ref makes and agree with everything that happens in this game? Nobody would say yes. We want to have a lawfully run election. And
This
when we
isn't
get
a soccer game.
When we get if we have a lawfully run election, absolutely, absolutely. There's nothing more I'd rather do if we have a lawfully run election.
If we have a lawfully run election, I got to tell you, Kristen, that is sticking. I spoke to a lot of voters who are going into this early voting site behind me in Maricopa County, a swing county. Some of them, Trump voters, said they are coming out on the first day of early voting because they believe there are problems in the election, despite none of that being found in 2020 or 2022.
Julie, what a remarkable exchange there with the Senate candidate. Let me ask you, of course, you were able to interview Ruben Gallego as well. What was his message to you, and what were your key takeaways from him heading into tonight's big debate?
Well, this is somebody who is really trying to distance himself, Kristen, from his progressive record as a House member. He was part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He called himself a proud progressive up until he really got into the meat of his campaign here against Kari Lake. So he's trying to pull those voters in that she might be alienating. Take a listen to when I pressed him on this.
Well, I think number one, that's a very D.C. perspective. My focus is always delivering for Arizona, and I've done it in a bipartisan manner, and we'll continue to do it.
So you don't think that you've moved to the center on your record?
No, I think we're focusing, again, on talking about where Arizona should go, and we're highlighting things that we've done in the past to make sure that people understand we're fighting for Arizona.
He also stressed that he's running his race independently of Kamala Harris, who is neck and neck with Trump or trailing him in some cases. So just really interesting dynamics all around, Kristen.
Fantastic interviews. Great job, Julie Tsirkin. As always, thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us. I'm back tomorrow with more Meet the Press Now. The news continues with Hallie Jackson right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.